The old shepherd mix suddenly stopped at the base of a rusted water tower, refusing to move. Thomas, a weary veteran with a scar over his brow, followed the dog's gaze upward. Sunlight flickered strangely from the tower's beams, like a hidden message. When he climbed, a distress signal appeared, one that would change everything. Thomas Gray, 55, carried the weight of years on his broad but tired shoulders. His scarred brow and faded army jacket told stories of battles past. Max, his aging shepherd mix with silvered muzzle and limping gait, stopped suddenly at the rusted water tower. The veteran narrowed his hazel eyes. Max had never been wrong before. His deep bark echoed across the empty field, bouncing against the iron structure. Thomas felt a twinge of unease. Why here, in this forgotten place, would the dog refuse to move? Something hidden within the tower seemed to call them both closer. The water tower loomed like a relic from another time, its iron beams streaked with rust, its ladder corroded and dangerous. Thomas placed a steadying hand on Max's head, feeling the old dog's tense muscles. The animal's amber eyes stared fixedly upward, as though urging him to climb. Thomas remembered missions long ago, when instinct was the difference between life and death. The scar on his brow tingled in the sunlight as he gazed at the tower's peak. Whatever drew Max's attention wasn't chance. He tightened his jaw, aware that his quiet walk had just turned into something unexpected. Thomas circled the tower's base, boots crunching in the overgrown weeds. Each step revealed more signs of neglect: flaking paint, cracked bolts, and graffiti faded by years of storms. Yet among the decay, he spotted something out of place. A faint reflection glinted briefly from above, almost like sunlight bouncing off glass or metal. His soldier's instincts sharpened. Max barked again, pawing at the ground, refusing to leave. Thomas exhaled slowly, chest tightening. He had seen reflections like this before, signals meant for those who knew how to look. Someone wanted to be found, and the tower had been chosen. Thomas placed his hand on the corroded ladder, testing its strength. The metal groaned, but held. His scar caught the sunlight as he glanced at Max, who sat firmly at the base, tail still, eyes locked upward. The dog seemed to give silent permission. Thomas muttered under his breath, "Just like old times." He began to climb, each step deliberate, boots pressing rust into dust. The world narrowed into the ladder, the sound of his breath, and the distant cry of seagulls overhead. Beneath him, Max's steady presence reminded him he wasn't climbing alone into this mystery. Halfway up, Thomas paused, catching his breath. His muscles, though worn by time, still remembered the discipline of service. The metal rungs were sharp against his calloused hands, and flakes of rust clung to his palms. He looked down briefly. Max remained below, steady as ever, eyes unwavering. Turning upward again, Thomas saw the glint grow brighter. It wasn't imagination. The sunlight struck an object carefully placed among the tower's beams. His pulse quickened. In war zones, such signals had often meant survival. Here, in quiet farmland, the meaning was far more haunting. Someone was reaching out, desperately. At the top of the tower, Thomas clung carefully to the last rung, heart steady despite the dizzying height. The wind tugged at his faded jacket, carrying the scent of salt and rust. There, wedged between beams, lay a small mirror angled toward the sun. It flickered faintly, an SOS in light. His scar twitched as old memories stirred. Prisoners of war, secret signals, desperate pleas. Max barked faintly from below, the sound drifting upward. Thomas reached out, fingers trembling, and pulled the mirror free. Scratched into its back were letters he hadn't seen in years. Help, still alive. Thomas stared at the scratched message, his hazel eyes narrowing. The words were desperate, etched with urgency. He looked down at Max, who stood motionless below, tail curled, gaze unbroken. The dog seemed to understand. Slowly, Thomas tucked the mirror into his jacket pocket, gripping the ladder for the descent. Each step downward was harder than the climb up, his mind heavy with questions. Who had left the signal? How long ago? And why here, hidden on a forgotten tower? By the time his boots met solid ground again, Thomas felt the air thick with mystery and unfinished stories. On the grass beside the tower, Thomas sat cross-legged, the old mirror balanced in his weathered hands. Sunlight gleamed across the scratched words, confirming what he had seen. Max limped close, lowering his silver muzzle into Thomas's lap, eyes searching. The veteran rubbed the dog's ears absent-mindedly, Scar catching light. He thought of comrades lost, coded signals, and the way hope clung even in the darkest holes. Somebody wanted this seen, he murmured, voice rough. The land was quiet, only the creak of the tower above. Yet in that silence, the weight of a life calling out pressed heavily. Rising slowly, Thomas studied the landscape. Farmland stretched wide, but beyond the fields lay wooded hills and abandoned roads. Max sniffed the air, circling the tower's base, tail stiff. The veteran unfolded his worn map, tracing routes with a calloused finger. The mirror wasn't random, it faced toward those hills. His chest tightened with the old pull of duty. He looked down at Max. "We're not done yet, boy." The dog's ears twitched, as if agreeing. With deliberate steps, Thomas tucked the map away, adjusted his jacket, and turned toward the hills. Whatever waited there had sent the signal. The path grew narrow, lined with brambles and thorny weeds. Thomas pushed forward, his boots crunching earth, Max limping but determined beside him. Sunlight flickered through trees, painting patches of gold across the veteran's scarred face. He remembered patrols long ago, moments when each sound in the brush might mean danger. Here, only birds called, yet tension thickened. He clutched the mirror in his pocket like a promise. Max suddenly barked, ears pricking forward. Ahead, in the undergrowth, Thomas spotted faint boot prints pressed into the dirt, old but clear. His jaw tightened. They weren't wandering alone into these wood. Thomas knelt by the boot prints, tracing the impressions with his fingers. The soil was dry, but the weight of the steps suggested someone strong, moving with purpose. Max sniffed along the trail, tail raised, though his limp slowed him. Thomas's scar glinted under shifting sunlight as he rose. Old instincts stirred. This was no coincidence. The signal on the tower and these prints belonged to the same story. He tightened his faded jacket and whispered to Max, "We follow." The dog's cloudy amber eyes met his, unwavering. Together, they stepped into the woods, shadows closing like silent witnesses. The forest path twisted, roots gripping the earth like hands unwilling to release. Thomas moved with caution, each heavy step deliberate, his breathing steady. Max kept close, ears twitching at every sound. A fallen branch cracked beneath the veteran's boot, echoing louder than expected. He paused, listening. Then, faint in the distance, he heard it. A metallic clang, rhythmic and hollow. His scar tingled as memories returned of coded taps in prison cells. Someone was signaling. Thomas raised his hand, urging Max still, and strained his hazel eyes forward. The dog's ears perked again, tail tense with shared urgency. They followed the sound deeper into the woods until the trees opened to reveal a clearing. At its center stood a collapsed shed, its roof caved but walls leaning stubbornly. The metallic tapping came from inside. Thomas advanced, boots sinking into soft earth, scar furrowed with determination. Max circled the perimeter, sniffing, hackles raised slightly. The veteran placed his palm on the rotting wood, feeling the vibration of the sound. He whispered, "Not wind, not random." His heart pounded. With a deep breath, he pushed the creaking door open, revealing the dim interior where the signal grew louder. Inside the shed, shafts of sunlight cut through broken planks, illuminating dust and debris. In the corner, Thomas spotted a battered metal can, swinging lightly from a rope. Each sway banged it against the wall, creating the hollow rhythm. He frowned, set deliberately, not accident. On the floor nearby lay an old backpack, its straps frayed, its surface caked with dirt. Max padded in behind him, sniffing at the bag, tail stiff. Thomas crouched, Scar stark in the light, and unbuckled the flap. Inside were scraps of paper, a rusted compass, and one word scrawled again and again: help. Thomas sat heavily on the dusty floor, papers trembling in his weathered hands. The handwriting was jagged, desperate, as though scratched in haste. Max lay beside him, head resting on his boot, eyes watching. Thomas read aloud softly, voice rough. Trapped, injured, cannot leave. SOS from tower. His jaw clenched, scar deepening. These notes were not old. They smelled of damp ink and sweat. Someone was nearby, alive, and waiting. He looked at Max, who let out a soft whine. "We've got work to do," Thomas muttered. Rising slowly, he tucked the notes away. The mission had truly begun. Thomas stepped out of the shed, the weight of the desperate notes pressing against his chest pocket. The air felt heavier, as if the forest itself held its breath. Max limped beside him, ears flicking at unseen movements. Thomas scanned the tree line, soldier's instinct reminding him that someone could be watching. His scar caught the slanting light as he muttered, "No time to waste." He traced the boot prints again, now leading away from the shed toward a rocky ridge. With each step, his boots sank into damp earth, the dog's soft panting the only sound breaking the tense silence. The ridge rose steeply, rocks jagged and loose beneath Thomas's boots. He moved carefully, scar furrowed, feeling the strain of age in his shoulders. Max followed close, his limp more pronounced but determination unwavering. Halfway up, Thomas paused, squinting at something wedged between two stones. It was a torn scrap of cloth, faded but deliberate. He knelt, running his fingers over the fabric. It bore faint military markings. His chest tightened with recognition. Someone out here wasn't just a wanderer. They had once worn the same kind of uniform. The scar above his eye ached, memory colliding with present urgency. At the top of the ridge, the world opened wide. Beyond the trees, an abandoned cabin stood crooked against the sky, its roof sagging, chimney crumbling. Max barked once, sharp, as if confirming the target. Thomas steadied his breath, the notes and mirror burning like unanswered questions. The scar on his brow gleamed with sweat. He descended slowly toward the cabin, hand brushing the rough bark of trees for balance. The place radiated silence, but silence heavy with presence. As they approached, Thomas spotted faint smoke curling weakly from the broken chimney. Someone was there, and struggling to survive. The cabin's door was half off its hinges, creaking in the breeze. Thomas pushed gently, boots crunching on dry leaves scattered across the threshold. Inside, light filtered through gaps in the walls, illuminating a bare room. Max entered cautiously, nose twitching. In the corner, Thomas spotted a bedroll and empty canteen. Then he froze. Etched into the floorboards were markings, scratched desperately. Still alive! His scar pulsed, as though echoing the urgency. He glanced at Max, who whined softly, ears drooping. This was no illusion. Whoever had left these signs was close. Perhaps watching, perhaps waiting for rescue. Thomas crouched, tracing the carved letters with a calloused finger, his breath slow but heavy. Max sniffed the bedroll, then let out a muffled bark, pawing at a loose board nearby. Thomas pried it open, scar gleaming in a shaft of sunlight. Beneath lay a small tin box, battered but intact. Inside were scraps, a locket with a faded photograph, a rusted pocket knife, and another note: "Do not stop searching." His chest tightened. He pocketed the items carefully, closing the box. Standing tall, he muttered, "We'll find them." Max wagged his tail faintly, limping closer. The mission pulled them deeper in. Thomas stepped back into the sunlight, the tin box heavy in his jacket pocket. His hazel eyes scanned the horizon, searching for movement. Max limped to his side, ears twitching. The forest whispered with unseen life, branches swaying though the wind was still. Thomas's scar caught the light as his jaw tightened. Whoever left the box had wanted him to find it. He muttered, "You're not far." His boots pressed into the dirt path, Max pacing beside him. The faintest sound reached his ears. Distant, ragged coughing. His heart leapt. They weren't chasing ghosts. Someone alive needed them now. Following the faint sound, Thomas pressed deeper into the woods, Max staying close, tail curved but steady. The cough grew louder, broken by silence like someone fighting for each breath. At last, they reached a shallow ravine, where tangled roots twisted like skeletal fingers. There, half hidden among fallen branches, lay a figure, gaunt, trembling, wrapped in torn clothing. Thomas froze, scar tightening. The man's face was hollow, but his eyes sparked with recognition. Max barked sharply, then softened, as if greeting an old friend. Thomas's chest constricted. The lost soldier they had been seeking was no stranger. He knew this man. Thomas knelt beside the man, sliding an arm under his frail shoulders. The soldier's lips cracked as he whispered, "Thought no one would come." Thomas's scar seemed to burn as old memories returned. Faces from the past, missions that ended in silence. "You held on," he said firmly. Max pressed close, laying his muzzle against the man's chest. The veteran pulled a canteen from his pack, tipping water carefully to the parched lips. The soldier's hand trembled, clutching Thomas's sleeve as though afraid he might vanish. For the first time in years, Thomas felt his duty ignite again. With strength born of grit, Thomas lifted the weakened soldier to his feet. The man leaned heavily on him, ribs sharp beneath tattered clothes. Max circled protectively, limping but alert, amber eyes fixed on the trail ahead. Thomas's boots pressed firmly into the soil, guiding them toward the open field beyond the woods. Each step was labor, yet the sun broke through clouds, casting warm light over their path. He thought of comrades gone, of promises to never leave anyone behind. His scar ached, but his heart swelled. They weren't walking alone. Hope itself walked beside them now. They emerged from the forest into golden daylight, the rusted water tower still looming in the distance like a sentinel of secrets. Thomas eased the rescued soldier onto the grass, his own chest heaving. Max lay down beside them, muzzle against Thomas's boot, tail gently thumping. The man whispered, "You saved me." Thomas shook his head, scar catching the sun. "No, we saved each other." He reached to scratch Max's ear, voice soft, and him most of all. The old dog's eyes, clouded but faithful, glowed with quiet triumph. For the veteran, the mission was over, but his purpose endured.